The Apache lady shouldn't have been there. In the dim bedroom of the rancher's house, she moved with easy hands over the dying guy's chest, her fingers drawing shapes that had no name in the white folks' words. Graham Thornhill watched her with eyes that held something crazy. Not fear, not doubt, but knowing her, as if he'd been waiting for her. On the table next to the bed sat a leather folder, closed with wax that had no family sign, no mark anyone in town would know. In the corner, a clay bowl burned with sage, smoke she hadn't put there herself. And when Ayana's hand touched Graham's hot skin, he whispered something that made her stop, a word in her own language that no white guy should know. Ayana had got to the place 2 hours before dawn, led only by a note left at the edge of tribal lands. The note had no name, just spots on a map and a single pressed flower she knew from her grandma's lessons. Someone knew just how to find her. Someone got the old ways. The house was all alone, with flat lands going on forever all around. Inside, the air was heavy with sick smell and something else. Sage, burning in a clay bowl she hadn't put there. Graham Thornhill lay in a bed too big for one person, his breathing light and hard. His face was rough like canyon rock, but his eyes stayed sharp, following her as she came in. She thought he would talk first. Ask who she was, want to know why she'd come. Instead, he just watched her, and in that watching she felt bare in a way that had nothing to do with danger. His look had weight, smarts, and something that made her heart beat faster, even though she didn't want it. "The fever's been 3 weeks," she said, putting her medicine bag on the chair by his bed. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "You should be gone already." "Should be." His voice was like rough rocks, but I made a promise to wait. She got closer, reaching for his wrist to check his heartbeat. The second her fingers touched his skin, Graham's hand turned, grabbing hers. Not hard, just enough to make her stop. The touch sent surprise heat up her arm. She looked at his eyes and saw them looking at her face with a strong look that should have felt pushy, but somehow didn't. "You're Ayana," he said. Not a question. "How do you know my name?" "Because I've been keeping your people's holy places safe for 15 years, and I'm the only thing between them and the guys who want to rip them up." She pulled her hand back, thoughts spinning. No white guy kept tribal lands safe. No rancher with this much land spoke her language or knew how to reach her through the old signs. Nothing about this guy fit with what she'd learned about his kind. "Why would you do that?" she asked, doubt making her voice hard. Graham's breathing caught. He shut his eyes quick, pushing through pain. When he opened them again, there was something hurt in his look. "Because I'm dying, and I need to fix what I helped wreck." The words stayed in the air between them like smoke. Ayana stood still, feeling crawling up her back that she'd just got into something way bigger than fixing one sick guy. This wasn't about medicine. This was about old debts that had nothing to do with her. "I shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "No," Graham agreed, his eyes never leaving hers. "But you came anyway, which means you already know this matters." Outside, the sound of horses coming cut through the quiet before dawn. Lots of riders going fast. Graham's look didn't change, but his hand moved slow to the leather folder on the table. "They can't know you're here yet," he said, hurry in his weak voice. Not until the front door banged open. Footsteps heavy and mad rang through the house. Ayana's heart pounded against her ribs as she had no way out. No story and no clue what she'd just walked into. But something in Graham's face told her that whatever was going to happen had been coming from the second she'd got that pressed flower, and that the real reason she was here hadn't come out yet. The lady who rushed through the door wore black from neck to bottom, her face tight with mad anger. Miriam Caldwell. Ayana knew her from market days. The lady who wouldn't touch coins if native hands had held them first. Behind her stood 2 ranch workers, both holding rifles loose at their sides. Not pointed. Not yet, but there. "Step away from him," Miriam ordered, her voice sharp as broken glass. Ayana didn't move. Her medicine bag sat open on the chair, its stuff showing. Herbs, bark, clay pots, proof. Graham's hand stayed near the leather folder, but he'd gone still, saving what little power he had left. "This lady is helping me," Graham said, each word taking his breath. Helping? Miriam's laugh was sharp. She's probably poisoning you. Everyone knows what her kind does to get out of my house. The order cut through the room like a knife. Graham hadn't made his voice loud, but something in his sound made even Miriam stop. The ranch workers moved uneasy. Ayanna stayed still between them, figuring spaces, ways out, the heavy feel of fight pushing on her chest. Miriam's eyes got small. The doctor said you had weeks. That was a month ago, Graham. Now you're somehow still breathing? And this wild one is in your bedroom before dawn. People will talk, let them. I won't stand by and watch you wreck your name over some. I said get out. The quiet that followed shook with stress. Finally, Miriam turned fast, waving hard to the ranch workers. They went back, boots heavy on the wood floor. But at the doorway, Miriam stopped, looking back at Ayanna with clear hate. You don't belong here, she said quietly. And whatever he's promised you, it won't matter when he's gone. The door shut. Ayanna let out a breath she hadn't known she'd been holding. Her hand shook a bit as she went back to Graham's bedside. She thought he would explain, make it right, say sorry for the fight. Instead, he was watching her face again with that same strong focus that made her feel seen in ways she couldn't name. You stayed, he said softly. I'm not done fixing you. That's not why you stayed. Heat went up her neck. She kept busy checking his heartbeat, but his wrist was right there under her fingers, warm and alive, even with the sickness eating him. His breathing had got worse from the fight stress. She could feel his heart working too hard under skin that burned with fever. You need rest, she said, not looking at his eyes. I need you to get something first. Graham's voice went lower. Urgent, those lands I talked about, the holy spots. I have maps, papers, proof that they belong to your people, not to the land office. But when I die, folks like Miriam's husband will come for them. They'll say the papers are fake. They'll dig up the grounds looking for silver spots that aren't there. Ayanna's hand stopped on his wrist. Why are you telling me this? Because I need someone who will fight for them. Someone with a right they can't ignore. I have no right to your stuff, not yet. The words stayed between them, full of stuff she couldn't quite get. Graham's eyes held hers, and in them she saw need, strong will, and something else. Something that made her heart beat fast in ways that had nothing to do with fear. What are you asking me? She whispered. To trust me for 3 more days? That's all I'm asking right now. 3 days and then you'll get everything. Outside, the sound of horses coming back made them both tense. But these hoofbeats were different, faster, more hurry. Ayanna went to the window and her tummy sank. Takakota sat on his painted horse, his face mad even from far. Her brother come to pull her home, and behind him rode 6 more warriors, weapons easy to see against the rising sun. Takakota got off before his horse had fully stopped, anger coming from every part of his body. Ayanna met him at the door, blocking the way in with her body. Behind her, she heard Graham trying to sit up, heard his hard breathing get worse with the try. You were seen, Takakota said in their language, his voice low and scary. Entering a white man's house alone before dawn. I'm fixing him. You're turning on us. He got closer, tall over her. Do you know what the council said when they heard? Do you get what you've done to our family's name? Ayanna held her spot, though her brother's anger cut deeper than any knife. They'd lost their parents to white folks' fights 5 years ago. Takakota had every right to his mad. But he didn't get what was going on here. He's keeping our holy land safe, she said quietly. The canyon, the burial spots, the spring where Grandma with what promises? Takakota's laugh was rough. He's dying, Ayanna, and when he's gone, his folks will take everything anyway. They always do. From inside the house, Graham's voice came out, weak but clear. The papers are real, signed by the land boss. They can't be fought. Takakota's eyes went cold. You taught him our language. I taught myself, Graham fixed, now seen in the doorway behind Ayanna. He leaned heavy on the frame, his face gray with try. 15 years learning. 15 years making sure those lands stayed safe. But I'm running out of time. And I need a bad cough hit him. Ayanna turned, catching Graham as his legs gave out. His weight fell on her, and for a second, they were pushed together, his hot skin burning through her clothes, his breath hot on her neck. She felt his heart pounding, felt the shake in his muscles as he tried to stay awake. "I've got you," she said soft, leading him back to the bed. His hand found her waist, holding tight, and even through the doctor need of the touch, she felt sparks jump between them. His eyes met hers inches away, and she saw thanks mixed with something deeper, knowing of a link neither of them had wanted. Takakota showed in the doorway, his look hard to read. He watched as Ayana put Graham back on the bed, watched how careful she fixed the blankets, how her hand stayed on his shoulder longer than needed. "You care for him?" Takakota said flat. "Not a question, a blame." Ayana's throat got tight. She couldn't say no. Somewhere between the pressed flower and this second, something had changed. Graham wasn't just a sick guy. He was a guy carrying bad feelings that weighed more than his sickness, trying to make it right in the only way left to him. And when he looked at her, she didn't see a white guy seeing an Apache lady. She saw someone who really saw her. "The old ones want you home," Takakota went on. "Today they've called a meeting. I can't leave him like this. You can. You will." Takakota's voice got a bit soft. "Please, sister, before this wrecks you." Graham's hand moved weak toward the leather folder. "Show him," he said rough to Ayana. "Show him the maps." She got the folder, breaking the wax seal with shaking fingers. Inside were careful drawings, every holy spot within 50 miles, marked and named in both English and careful Apache writing. Under them, real papers with stamps and names, and at the bottom, something that made her breath stop. A marriage paper, blank except for one name already put in. Graham Thornhill. Her eyes went to Graham's face. He watched her steady. No sorry in his look, just sure. 3 days, he whispered. "I told you 3 days." Takakota grabbed the folder from her hands, his face getting dark as he looked through. When he looked up, his eyes held killing. "If you do this," he said slow, "you are no longer my sister." Outside, the warriors were getting off horses, and from the other way, more riders came. Miriam Caldwell coming back with half the town behind her. Ayana stood still between two worlds, both ready to rip her apart for a pick she hadn't yet said yes to. But Graham's fever was going up again. She could see it in the red spreading on his chest. In the way his breathing had gone light and fast, he had hours, maybe not days. Whatever he needed to ask her, he was running out of time to do it. Ayana shut the door, blocking out the mess outside. Takakota's warriors, Miriam's group, 2 sides coming on this small house with her stuck in the middle. But inside this room there was only Graham. His breathing hard, his time counted in beats. "You want me to marry you?" she said quietly. Not a question. The paper had made that clear. "Yes, you're dying." "Yes, then what's the point?" Her voice broke even though she tried to stay steady. "Why tie me to a dead man? Why make me a widow before I've even been a wife?" Graham waved weak toward the chair by his bed. She waited, then sat close enough that their knees almost touched, close enough to feel the heat coming from his hot body. He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. His palm was rough, hard from years of ranch work, but his hold was soft. "Because marriage gives you legal spot," he said, each word careful. "As my widow, you get everything, the land, the house, the papers proving those holy spots belong to your people. Without that legal tie, the land court will give it all to Miriam's husband within a week of my death. He's already put in early claims." Ayana's breath stopped. "You're giving me your whole place. I'm giving your people back what was taken from them. I'm just using the white man's rules to do it." His thumb drew slow across her knuckles, the touch sending warm up her arm. "But it has to be real, seen, written down, and it has to happen before I die. The town will never take it. My tribe will kick me out." "I know what I'm asking." His eyes looked at her face, and she saw pain there that had nothing to do with his sickness. "I'm asking you to give up everything for folks who might never thank you. I'm asking you to tie yourself to a guy you barely know. To become a widow the same day you become a wife." "Why me?" she whispered. "You could have found someone else. Someone without a family to lose. Someone who, because you came when I called." His hold got tighter a bit. Because when you touch me, you see a person, not a group. Because you're strong enough to carry what I'm leaving behind. And because he stopped, something open crossing his look. Because in another life, in another world, I would have wanted to know you right, to date you the way you deserve, to have time. The saying stayed between them, real and true. Ayana felt tears start in her eyes. She'd spent 3 days caring for this guy, learning the beat of his breathing, remembering the lines of his face. Somewhere in those quiet hours, something had started. Respect, knowing, the start of something that now would never have the chance to grow. I don't love you, she said, needing the truth between them. I know, but you care enough to think about this. That's more than I deserve. Outside, Takakota's voice got loud in anger. Miriam's yell back cut through the walls. They were running out of time for Pick, running out of time for everything. If I say yes, Ayana started slow. If I do this, what happens after you're gone? You fight. You use every legal paper in that folder to keep those lands safe. You let my death mean something. His breathing caught, pain crossing his face. You let me fix what I helped break. What did you break? Graham's eyes shut. When he spoke again, his voice was barely heard. I was 20 years old. I rode with guys who hit your people's camps. I didn't kill anyone, but I watched. I did nothing to stop it. Your parents? He opened his eyes, meeting her look straight. Your parents died in one of those hits. I wasn't there that day, but I rode with the guys who were. The world stopped. Ayana's hand went cold in his hold. She should have pulled away, should have hated him. But looking at his face, she saw a guy who'd spent 15 years trying to make up for 3 nights of being scared. A guy who'd learned her language, kept her people's holy places, who was now giving everything he owned to balance things that could never be balanced. I can't forgive you, she said. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to let me try to make it right. The door shook hard. Voices yelled in 2 languages. The group was losing weight. Ayana stood, Graham's hand still in hers. She looked down at this dying guy who held her people's future in his weak hold. This stranger who saw her, this bad guy looking for impossible fix. 3 days, you said. It's been 3 days, yes. Then ask me right. Graham tried to sit up. She helped him, holding his weight as he swung his legs over the side of the bed. He looked up at her, and even with the fever, even with the pain, his eyes were clear. Ayana, will you marry me? Before she could answer, the door burst open and everything turned to mess. Takakota stood in the doorway, chest moving hard, his warriors next to him. Behind them, Miriam pushed through with Reverend Hayes, the town's church guy, his face hard with no like. Both groups stopped at the sight before them. Graham barely up, Ayana's hand in his, the marriage paper seen on the bed. No, Takakota said, the one word shaking with mad. Absolutely not, Miriam said, back her voice high. Reverend, you cannot allow this bad thing. Ayana turned to face them all, still holding Graham's hand. Her heart pounded against her ribs, but she kept her voice steady. Yes. Graham's fingers got tight around hers. She felt him lean more heavy on her, his power going fast, but he stayed up, stayed there, stayed with her. Yes, he whispered, needing sure. Yes, I'll marry you. The room blew up. Takakota jumped forward, but his warriors caught him, holding him back as he yelled in their language. Words about turning back, about no honor, about picking the enemy over blood. Miriam's voice got high and no like about nice ways and name and the holy of church marriage. The Reverend just stood still, his face white. You have no power here, Miriam spit at Ayana. No legal spot. This is a joke. Then make it legal, Graham said, his voice cutting through the noise even though weak. He looked at Reverend Hayes. Marry us right now. I most certainly will not, the Reverend said back, his tone cold. This is clearly a plan to what? Give land back to its real keepers. Graham's breathing got more hard. To use my death for something other than filling greedy guys' pockets. Your land belongs to this town. To church folks who took it? Graham swayed, and Ayana right away wrapped her arm around his waist, taking more of his weight. The move pushed them together, her body holding his, and she felt the fast beat of his heart against her side. Every bit taken, and I'm making it right. By marrying this wild one, Miriam's hate was open now. By giving her rights to stuff she has no business. Get out, Ayanna said quietly. The room went quiet. She looked at each person one by one, her arms still around Graham's failing body. All of you, except the Reverend. Sister, please. Takakota's voice broke. Don't do this. Come home. We'll find another way to keep the land safe. There is no other way. You know that. Then let them take it. Better that than watching you wreck yourself. For what? She met her brother's eyes. For, right? For keeping what our parents died for. The words hit Takakota like a hit. His face fell, then got hard into something cold and far. If you do this, you're not our blood anymore. The council will kick you out. I will kick you out. The pain of it cut through her chest, but Ayanna didn't look away. Then I'll live with that. Takakota turned and walked out, his warriors following. The door banged behind them with end. Miriam stayed, her look full of poison. This won't hold, she hissed. The land court will flip it. You'll have nothing. We have legal papers, Graham said. Signed, closed. You can fight it all you want, but the rule is clear. Miriam's eyes got small. Then you'd better hope he lives long enough to actually finish the thing, because without finishing, without seers, the marriage isn't real. She smiled cold, and he's dying right now. She went out, leaving only the Reverend. Hayes stood in bad quiet, fighting with his inside. Finally, he spoke. I can't do this in good way. Then do it in bad way, Graham said straight. I don't care about your okay. I care about legal spot. There must be seers, too, at least. The ranch workers, Ayanna said. They work for Graham. They'll see. And who gives the bride away? The Reverend's tone was sharp. Who from her family says yes? Quiet. Ayanna's throat got tight. She had no one now. Takakota's no had cut the last string. I give myself, she said quietly. I say yes to my own marriage. The Reverend looked between them. This dying guy and the lady who just gave up everything to stand by him. Whatever he saw in their faces made him breathe deep. This is not normal, very not normal. But he stopped. I'll need the paper and the ranch workers. Now before the Reverend didn't end the words because Graham's knees were giving. Ayanna caught him lowering them both to the floor as his awake wavered. His skin burned against hers, his breath coming in light gasps. She held his head in her lap, feeling the fast beat in his neck. Stay with me, she whispered, her hand against his hot cheek. Just a little longer. Stay with me. Graham's eyes found hers, and in them she saw thanks, sorry, and something soft that made her chest hurt. His hand reached up, fingers brushing her face. Thank you, he breathed. The Reverend was already yelling for the ranch workers. Ayanna heard boots running, doors opening, but all she could think on was the guy dying in her arms and the crazy promise she just made to see him through to the end. 2 ranch workers came in, their faces not sure. They'd worked Graham's land for years, but nothing got them ready for this. Their dying boss on the floor, held by an Apache lady, a fast wedding about to happen. The Reverend waved them to spots as seers, his look tight with no like. We need to move him to the bed, Ayanna said quietly. Together, the ranch workers lifted Graham while Ayanna led them. They put him up against the headboard, pillows holding his weight. His eyes were half shut, awake, coming and going. Ayanna knelt by the bed, taking his hand. His fingers curled weak around hers. Can he even speak his promises? One ranch hand asked, not sure. He will, Ayanna said, with more sure than she felt. Reverend Hayes opened his old prayer book, his hands shaking a bit. This is very not normal. If the land court asks, they won't. Graham cut in, his voice a rough sound. His eyes opened full, finding the Reverend's face. Because I'm about to make sure everyone gets just why this is happening. Something in his sound made everyone in the room go still. Ayanna felt his hand tight around hers. Felt him getting his left power for something big. Before we start, Graham went on, each word made careful. I need to make a say, for the record, to be seen and kept. Graham, you need to save your power, Ayanna whispered. No, they need to hear this. He looked at each person one by one. The ranch workers, the Reverend, and finally Ayanna. My name is Graham Thornhill. I'm 52 years old, and I am a killer." The room stopped. The Reverend's prayer book almost fell from his hands. "Not by my own hand," Graham went on, his voice getting stronger with hurry, "but by my quiet, by my scared. 32 years ago, I rode with a bunch of guys who hit Apache homes. 3 hits over 2 weeks. I was 20 years old and wanting fun. For whatever lie we told ourselves made hurting okay." Ayana's breath stopped. She'd known he'd rode with those guys. But hearing him say it out to seers with such hard truth, it changed everything. "We burned homes. We split families. We took lives and called it moving forward." Graham's eyes never left the ranch workers' faces, making them hear every word. "And we took land. This land, every bit I've owned for the past 30 years, was taken through herding and filed as real claim through land offices that didn't ask stuff." One of the ranch workers moved uneasy. "Boss, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." Graham's breathing got more hard, but he pushed on. 5 years ago, I learned that the people killed in one of those hits were named Nishoba and Ayana, Dad and Mom, to the lady kneeling by me right now. The words fell like rocks into quiet water. Ayana felt tears burn her eyes but didn't let them fall. Everyone was looking at her now, getting dawning, the crazy of her pick becoming clearer. "So when I asked this lady to marry me," Graham said, his voice going to barely a whisper, "I'm not asking for forgive. I'm not asking for fix I don't deserve. I'm asking her to let me give back what was taken. To use my death to give her people legal keep they've been, no. To turn blood-wet land into safe ground." Reverend Hayes had gone white. "This say if the land court hears this, they'll hear it," Graham said flat. "That's the point. I want it written. I want it seen. I want everyone to know that these lands were never mine to take." He turned his look back to Ayana, and the open in his eyes was full. "And I want her to know that I get the heavy of what I'm asking, that I know she owes me nothing, that her saying yes to this makes her braver than I ever was." Quiet pushed against the walls. The ranch hand stood still. The Reverend looked between Graham and Ayana, something like wow mixing with his bad. Graham's hand shook in Ayana's hold. "So, Reverend, knowing all of this, knowing that I'm using marriage rule to fix taking, knowing that this lady is taking a load no one should carry, will you marry us?" Hayes looked at the prayer book in his hands for a long time. When he looked up, his look had changed into something set. "Yes," he said quietly. "Yes, I will." He started reading the wedding words, but Ayana barely heard them. Her whole think was on Graham's face, on the guy who'd just out loud wrecked his own name to give her the legal spot to keep her people's stuff, on the guy dying in front of her who'd picked truth over nice. "Do you, Graham Thornhill, take this lady as your real wedded wife?" "I do." "Do you, Ayana, take this guy as your real wedded husband?" She looked at Graham's face, gray with coming death, but eyes clear and steady. This stranger, this bad guy, this person who saw her as same in a world that saw her as less. "I do." "Then by the power given to me, I say you husband and wife." The words sat over the room like snow. Nobody moved. Nobody talked. They all got it. They just saw something crazy. A deathbed wedding between enemy folks built on say and aimed at right. But Graham wasn't done. His hand pulled weak at Ayana's, drawing her closer. She leaned in, their faces inches apart. "One more thing," he breathed. "My last ask." Everyone leaned forward, waiting. And what Graham said next made every person in that room go totally still. "When I die," Graham said, his voice barely heard, "I want you to bury me in Apache burial grounds next to your parents so I can spend forever keeping the land I helped wreck." The quiet that followed was full, hard. Nobody breathed. The ranch workers looked with mouths open. Reverend Hayes actually stepped back, his face losing all color. Even Ayana felt shock go through her whole body. That's the Reverend finally got out. "That's bad to both folks. You can't ask." "I'm not asking they're okay." Graham cut in his eyes, locked on Ayana's face. "I'm asking hers. My wife's the only person whose think matters now." Ayana's mind spun. Apache burial grounds were holy. To put a white guy there, especially one who'd been in herding against her people, would be seen as dirty. Her tribe would see it as the worst turn. They'd probably dig up his body and burn it rather than let such bad. But Graham's thinking was smart. Great. Even if he was buried on that land, it became a written burial spot, kept under land rule, no touch. No one could dig it, live on it, or wreck it without dirty a grave. And as his widow, she'd have the legal power to fight his burial place. "You're using your own death as a weapon," she whispered. Yes, no sorry in his voice. "I'm making my body a legal wall. I'm turning my grave into a shield." One of the ranch workers found his voice. "Boss, they'll never let it. Her folks will fight." "They will," Graham agreed, his breathing getting more hard. "And that's why it has to be her pick. Why I can't push this. Why I'm asking, not saying must." His fingers drew weak across Ayanna's knuckles. "You already gave up your family for this marriage. I won't push you to give up your people's like too. If you say no, I'll be buried in the town spot. The lands will still be yours. The paper's still legal. This is a part. This is me asking for something I have no right to ask." Ayanna looked at his face, fever bright, pain in every line, death seen in the gray of his skin. He was giving her a way out, making it clear she could say no without bad. He'd already given her everything promised, but she got what he was really asking. He wanted to become part of the land's keep forever. Wanted his bones to lie where they could do the most good. Wanted to change from wrecker to keeper, even if that keep was only sign. "My folks will hate me forever if I do this," she said soft. "I know they'll see it as me picking you over our old ones. I know Takakota will never talk to me again. I know." Graham's voice broke. "And that's why I'll get if you say no. You've already gave enough." Outside she could hear voices getting. Word had gone. More folks coming. Soon they'd want answers. Want to see the marriage papers. Want stories for the crazy thing that had just happened. Ayanna looked at the ranch workers at their mixed-up faces. Looked at Reverend Hayes, who seemed stuck between church bad and slow-like. Looked back at Graham, this dying guy who'd spent 15 years getting ready for this second. "Your parents?" Graham whispered, so quiet only she could hear. "I never knew them, never talked to them. But I've spent 3 decades living on land they should have walked, breathing air they should have breathed. If I could switch places with them, I would. Since I can't, let me at least lie beside them. Let me keep their resting place." Tears finally went down Ayanna's cheeks. The ask was crazy, wild. It would make her an out forever. Her own folks would spit at her name. The white folks would laugh at her for letting such no honor to a white guy's body. But it would work. Graham's grave would make that land legal no touch. Holy ground known by both tribe way and land rule. No digging, no living, no wreck forever. "Yes," she heard herself say, "I'll do it." Graham's whole body seemed to loosen as if he'd been holding himself up through just will and could finally let go. His hand and hers went loose. His breathing, already light, became almost no. "Thank you," he breathed, "for everything. For seeing past what I was, for being stronger than a bad cough hit him." Blood spots on his lips. Ayanna grabbed his shoulders, holding him as his body shook. The ranch workers rushed forward, but there was nothing to do. Nothing that would stop what was happening. "Get the papers," the Reverend said, hurry to one of the ranch workers. "Sign them now," before the guy ran from the room. Ayanna held Graham against her chest, feeling his heart jump under her hands. His eyes found hers, and in them she saw thanks, peace, and something that might have been love if they'd had more time. "The lands are yours now," he got out. "Kept forever, I know. And you?" His voice went to nothing. She had to lean close to hear the last words. "You were worth waiting for." His eyes shut. His breathing stopped, and Graham Thornahill died in the arms of the lady he'd married an hour ago. Having given her everything he owned and asked for something crazy in return, the ranch worker burst back in with papers and ink. Saw Graham's still form. The pen fell from his hand. Outside, the getting crowd blew up into mess as word spread. But inside that room, there was only quiet. Ayanna sat holding her husband's body, now a widow before she'd ever truly been a wife, and in her hands. She held the legal power to keep her people's holy lands forever. The last ask that had froze everyone was now her load to carry. 3 days after Graham's death, Ayanna stood at the edge of the Apache burial grounds with a body wrapped in white cloth. Behind her, the Reverend and 2 ranch workers waited with shovels. Before her, blocking the path, stood every member of her tribe. Takakota stepped forward, his face stone. "You cannot enter." "I have the right," Ayanna said quietly. "These are my lands now, legal written, signed with the land office. You're standing on stuff that belongs to me. Stuff taken by the guy you're trying to bury here." Takakota's voice shook with held mad. "You would dirty our old one's resting place for him?" "I would keep it safe." Ayanna met her brother's eyes. "His grave makes this land no touch. Holy ground known by both our ways and their rules. No digging, no living, no wreck ever." An old lady pushed through the crowd. "You married our enemy. I married a dying guy who gave us back what was taken. Look." Ayanna pulled papers from her bag, holding them up. "Every holy spot within 50 miles, mapped, written, kept under land rule as culture keeps spots. Graham spent 15 years getting this. 15 years learning our language, marking our holy places, building legal walls to keep them safe. After he helped wreck them, Takakota spit. Yes. After he helped wreck them, Ayanna didn't back from the truth. He was scared at 20. He became something else at 50. And his last act gives us forever keep." The crowd talked low. Some faces showed mad, but others looked not sure. An older guy spoke up. "And what of you? Will you live among us again?" "No." The word hurt, but Ayanna spoke it clear. "I'll live on Graham's stuff. I'll keep the papers. I'll fight anyone who tries to break the kept grounds. I'll be the keeper he asked me to be alone," Takakota said flat. "No from both folks. If that's the price for keeping our holy places safe, I'll pay it." Quiet fell. The old lady stepped closer, looking at Ayanna's face. Finally, she spoke. "You've gave up everything. Your family, your spot among us, for land that was always ours to start with, for land that would have been taken from us." Ayanna fixed. "Graham's say is written. His say of taking is written. Any court that tries to take these lands now has to say they were taken stuff. That changes everything." The lady's look changed a bit. "Show me these papers." Ayanna spread them across the ground. Maps marked in 2 languages. "Land stamps and names." Graham's written say seen by the Reverend and ranch workers. "Legal pass that made every marked spot no touch." The old lady read slow, her old fingers drawing the Apache writing Graham had learned to write. "This white guy, he knew our language. He spent 15 years learning it. Learning us. Getting ready for this second. Why? Bad feel. Make up? Pick whatever word fits?" Ayanna's voice got soft. "He couldn't undo what he did. So he spent the rest of his life trying to balance the scales." The old lady looked up at Ayanna and something like flickered in her eyes. "You loved him?" "No." Ayanna's throat got tight. "But I liked him. And I think given time I could have then bury him." The lady stepped aside. "Not because we forgive him. Not because we take him, but because his grave helps our people. Let him be useful in death since he was wrecking in life." The crowd parted slow. Takakota didn't move, his face hard with turn. Ayanna passed close to him, carrying Graham's body toward the spot by her parents' graves. She felt her brother's eyes on her back, but didn't turn. The burial was fast. No thing beyond Ayanna's whispered words in Apache. A prayer for keep, for reason, for the change of hurting into keep. When the last shovel of dirt fell, she put a stone marker. Simple. No fancy cut, just his name and years. Graham Thornhill, keeper. The Reverend and ranch workers left. The tribe folks went slow, some mad, some thinking. Only Takakota stayed, standing at a space. "You picked him over us," he said finally. "I picked keep over pride," Ayanna said back. "I picked doing over sad. I picked to use his bad feel for our good rather than let it die no mean. And now you'll live alone on that stuff. No from everyone." "Yes." She turned to face him full. "But the holy canyon will never be dug. The burial grounds will never be messed. The spring where Grandma got medicine will stay clean. That's worth the alone." Takakota's jaw moved. For a second she thought he might reach for her. Instead he turned and walked away. Ayana stood alone between the graves. Her parents on one side, her husband on the other. Three folks who died hard in their ways. Three folks whose deaths now made a wall keeping the land they'd loved. She walked back to the ranch house as the sun set. Her house now, her job, her load, and her reason. Inside, she spread the papers across Graham's desk. Her desk now, every map learned, every legal fight ready. Tomorrow she'd ride to the land office, put in the will, file the marriage paper, start the work of holding this line. The white folks would fight her. They'd call the marriage fake, say Graham was pushed or crazy. They'd fight, let them. She had rule on her side now, and she'd shown she could give up everything for what mattered. Ayana lit a lamp against the getting dark. Outside, coyotes called to each other across the flats. Inside, she started writing letters to land bosses, to judges, to anyone who might try to take what Graham had given back. She was a widow at 25, and out from her tribe, a lady alone in a mean world. But she was also the legal owner of lands that would stay kept, the keeper of holy spots that would never be broken again. And that was enough. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen now to watch another unforgettable tale from the untamed frontier where courage and destiny collide in ways you never expected. Don't forget to subscribe and consider a super chat to help us keep bringing you more stories like these. Your support means everything to